Hello and welcome to our presentation. Today we'll be talking about the Panama Papers, what they are, we'll be explaining what shell companies are, and what Mossack Fonseca did. This presentation is from our Introduction to Law B class from Diego Gerlach, Jose Sierra, and Pedro Vieira da Cruz. What are the papers? The Panama Papers are the largest leak of financial and attorney-client information in the world. This leak contained about 11.5 million documents for more than 214,000 offshore entities. These documents were leaked from the Panamanian law firm Mossack Fonseca. Some documents trace back to the 1970s and involve. To understand the situation, we must first understand what shell companies are. Shell companies are corporations without active business operations or significant assets. They are not illegal, but can be used to make illegal activities. These corporations are used to disguise business ownership from law enforcement or the public, tax evasion, conduct financial activity in foreign markets, obtain financing, and hide financial activities from business partners, among other things. These companies set up in what is called tax havens. These places have tough laws that don't usually reveal information to government agencies about beneficial owners and shady transactions. Mossack Fonseca was a Panamanian law firm and corporate service provider founded in 1977. It was founded by German lawyer Jürgen Mossack and Panamanian lawyer Ramon Fonseca. It was the fourth largest provider of offshore financial services and it specialized in commercial law, trust services, investor advisory, internal business structures, intellectual property protection, and maritime law services. The company started out in Panama, but instability in the country made the firm look for other tax havens, where it found the British Virgin Islands in 1987 and incorporated more than 100,000 companies. It also had offices in China, Latin America, United States, Europe, and Switzerland. The company was involved in many controversies, mainly helping foreign citizens evade their local tax laws and international sanctions. Other important controversies were Argentine money laundering. Mossack Fonseca was involved in a scandal where a hedge fund was trying to recover money from the Argentinian government, where Mossack Fonseca created shell companies to secretly pass money from the government to an ally of the Kirchner family. Second one, Commerzbank. The firm was involved in a German government investigation of money laundering and tax evasion at Commerzbank. And finally, Petrobras Corporation. Mossack Fonseca was involved in scandals from the state-owned Brazilian oil company, which involved money laundering and corruption. 429 people were investigated. Mossack Fonseca was accused of providing services for the opening of offshore facilities and money laundering.
The Panama Papers are recognized as the biggest leak in financial history to ever happen. The unprecedented leak of 11.5 million files from the database of the world's fourth biggest offshore law firm, Mossack Fonseca. That is larger than the US diplomatic cables released by WikiLeaks in 2010 and the secret intelligence documents given to journalists by Edward Snowden in 2013 altogether. The records were obtained from an anonymous source by the German newspaper Süddeutsche Zeitung, which shared them with the International Consortium of Investigative Journalists, or the ICIJ, which then shared them with a large network of international papers, including The Guardian and the BBC. Evidently, this was now of global media coverage, due to it having such a vast amount of people involved worldwide, with over 214,488 offshore accounts revealed across the globe in over 200 countries. So, now we ask, who is going to be held accountable for this leak? Who is affected? And who is involved in this case? Obviously, we would first have to look at the anonymous whistleblower that gave out the 2.6 terabytes of leaked information. But since he was anonymous, he was not directly involved with the case. Secondly, the first one to publish and publicly share the leaked information was the German newspaper Süddeutsche Zeitung. Next to participate are those who investigated through the data. As we previously mentioned, the ICIJ, whose goal was to find anything out of the ordinary or any incriminating evidence in any of the 11.5 million documents, and to make sure none of this information is lost or covered up so that justice may be brought upon the undocumented deals and the tax evasions by some of the wealthiest and most powerful people in the world, which were later found. Those found guilty within the Panama Papers attempted all measures to escape criminality. Among those, there is Vladimir Putin, who refers to this as a conspiracy from the CIA. This is strongly supported because of the UBS whistleblower Birkenfield, who is an American citizen and was a banker working at UBS in Switzerland when he approached the US government with information on massive amounts of tax evasion by Americans with secret accounts in Switzerland. By the end of his whistleblowing career, Birkenfield had served more than 2 years in a US federal prison and had been awarded $104 million by the IRS for his information and shattered the foundations of more than a century of Swiss banking secrecy, which makes him what you can recognize a reliable source. And last but surely not least by the affected is Mossack Fonseca, the firm through which this was possible and from whom the data was collected. Overall, they were the most affected since soon after these papers were released, they had to shut down due to lack of credibility. Many people were involved, and it is a big amount of information. But does it really affect your average citizen? Yes, of course it affects every single one of us. To put it into perspective, significantly upward of billions of dollars were moved around in offshore accounts by the top 1% wealthiest people in the world to avoid paying the respective amount of taxes they would have to if the money was held in their own country. They were also making undocumented deals to their own benefit, trying to take advantage of loopholes within the law. Think about the tax money lost in this by the government. All that money could be used to work towards Sustainable Development Goals, or SDGs, or even towards a better education, or to have a better healthcare system, which at the moment of this presentation specifically could have been used to aid the fight against the pandemic we are currently facing. Within these accounts, there were even some affiliated to terrorist organizations. So instead of taxes, they were funding wars that killed people and supporting radical movements. These reasons altogether make up why the Panama Papers are so important and why it affects every single one of us. Out of the 11.5 million documents found, only 149 of them were made public, which leaves some people questioning if some cases are being covered up. And it also opens up space for theories such as the CIA conspiracy. Nonetheless, this is understandable, for it is a delicate matter and it must be analyzed thoroughly before showing to the public, and breaking the privacy of some accounts that were not involved in any illegal matter. The Panama Papers will be a long case due to the amount of information to process and the amount of parties involved. But as more documents are analyzed and revealed, even more incriminating evidence will continue to show up towards big figures around the globe.
As it has been said before, many heads of state, presidents, and celebrities and businessmen were involved in the creation of these offshore companies. Mauricio Macri was one of them. He was president of Argentina from 2015 to 2019. Flag Trading was a company created by his father, Francisco Macri, and his brother, Mariano Macri, both businessmen, in 1998, and it was listed in the Bahamas. Flag Trading was a company connected to Group Macri, a very powerful group of companies and enterprises with interests in many fields and many countries, such as Brazil and South America. In previous asset declarations, namely in 2007 and 2008, Mauricio Macri hid his participation on the company and justified it by saying he wasn't a shareholder. In 2008, he also declared $158,000 in foreign assets in foreign countries, although he didn't specify the location. Other names appearing on the Panama Papers are those of David Cameron and his father Ian Cameron. Ian created an investment fund in 1982. Blairmore Holdings was his name, and it was listed in Panama. In the late 90s, this investment fund even reached the value of $20 million. Blairmore was controlled using bearer shares, a type of shares in which the owner is whoever holds physically the certificate of ownership. When the papers were leaked, David Cameron denied any relation with the offshore company. But some days after, in an interview, he admitted to have profited from the investment fund just after selling his participation, which was 5,000 shares, for $50,000 in January 2010, just 4 months before being elected Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. Finally, the other relevant name we chose that appears to be related to the Panama Papers is Vladimir Putin, the current president of Russia. Although his name doesn't appear specifically in any of the papers, we can see that some close friends and relatives participated in the creation of these offshore companies. One of them is Sergei Roldugin, a famous cellist and businessman, owner of 3 companies: Sonet Overseas, International Media Overseas, and Writer Limited, whose suspicious activity includes the contraction of very large loans and paying back just a couple of dollars. For example, International Media Overseas contracted with Bank Russia a loan of $200 million and paid back just $1. Other names were the brothers Arkady and Boris Rottenberg, multi-billionaires and owners of at least 7 companies registered in the British Virgin Islands. Putin was asked several times about his connection with the papers, and his friends too, but they always denied their involvement and always claimed that their activities were illicit, and including also in 2016, on a live interview in Russian television, Vladimir Putin even said that Russia was under attack following those allegations.
Thanks for hearing our presentation. We hope you enjoyed. If you have any questions, just put them down in the comments and we'll try to answer them. And also, all the sources will be included in the description. Thank you.